Scary Mysteries, Twisted 2's. The Death of Michael Hastings and the Freeway Phantom. Tales of hauntings, murder, and scary mysteries. Every week, Twisted 2's dives into a pair of uniquely terrifying true stories that are worthy of a more in-depth look. For this week, we focus on a suspicious and mysterious death and a killer who hunted for young girls. Get ready for Scary Mysteries, Twisted 2's. Number 1. The Death of Michael Hastings. Young and at the prime of his career, the death of journalist and reporter Michael Hastings sent conspiracy theorists into overdrive. Born in Malone, New York, he lived there until he was 11, together with his parents and two brothers, Jeff and John. Even when he was a kid, he already showed an inclination towards writing, along with a strong political stance. He began his journalism career at Newsweek in 2002, where he served as an unpaid intern. At the time, he contributed articles to Gentleman's Quarterly and was a contributing editor at Rolling Stone magazine. In 2008, he wrote his first book titled I Lost My Love in Baghdad, which chronicled how he lost his then-fiancée after her convoy was attacked by militants, killing her and 3 security guards. However, it wasn't until 2010 when Hastings found himself in the spotlight when he interviewed former NATO International Security Assistance Force Commander Stanley McChrystal. In the Rolling Stone interview, McChrystal, as well as those interviewed, had harsh and critical remarks against the White House and other civilian officials. When the article came out, McChrystal issued an apology, but the damage had been done, and he was relieved from his position the very next day. Rolling Stone and Hastings himself defended their position and said that the information and quotes presented were accurate. The U.S. Army and the Pentagon even launched an investigation regarding the matter, which put Hastings on the radar of the administration as well as other agencies. He later on released a book titled The Operators that chronicled his travel with General Stanley McChrystal and his crew. During one night at a party, everyone was drunk, and one member of the group asked Hastings, "You're not going to fuck with us, are you?" While another person added, "We'll hunt you down and kill you if we don't like what you write." In the succeeding years, Hastings became even more critical of the government and the Obama administration. He attacked the president's foreign policy and claimed that certain elements of the Pentagon didn't want to make the trade for Bo Bergdahl. Bergdahl was an American soldier in Afghanistan who was captured by the Taliban in 2012 after he had walked out of his camp because he felt disillusioned by the war. Eventually, he was traded for 5 Taliban soldiers in 2014. But while Hastings courted controversy in his life, his death would create even more. On June 18, 2013, the car he was driving lost control and he crashed his Mercedes coupe in the early morning. It was a single-vehicle car crash in the LA neighborhood of Hancock Park. The car caught fire and Hastings' body was burnt beyond recognition. He was later on identified via fingerprints. His death was ruled an accident and the LAPD issued a report stating that there were no signs of foul play. However, there are many who believe that he didn't die from a tragic accident at all, but that he was in fact killed. See, prior to his death, he was working on a profile article of CIA Director John O'Brennan. He also told friends that the FBI or the government might interview them with questions about himself. After midnight on the day of his death, Hastings went to his neighbor Jordana's apartment and asked if he could borrow her car because he was afraid to drive his own. His neighbor declined, and later that day is when he got into his fatal crash. His family, including his wife, believed it was an accident. His brothers also state that Hastings was in a manic episode prior to his death, and that he had been in a paranoid state thinking his vehicle was somehow tampered with, and he wanted to get out of town. Conspiracy theorists say, however, that Hastings had been assassinated via carjacking. More recently, WikiLeaks seems to have confirmed the possibility of carjacking by intelligence agencies. The WikiLeaks vault 7 states. As of October 2014, the CIA was looking at infecting the vehicle control systems used by modern cars and trucks. The purpose of such control is not specified, but it would permit the CIA to engage in nearly undetectable assassinations. Today, the death of Michael remains a big question for some. One of his brothers admits that he was trying to convince Hastings to go to rehab because of a drug problem. He had suffered PTSD after staying in Iraq and Afghanistan, and on the night of his death snuck out, possibly believing that someone was out to get him. Whether it was a tragic accident or an assassination from his own government, the mystery of Michael Hastings' death may never be solved. Number 2. The Freeway Phantom. From 1971 to 1972, the Freeway Phantom abducted and killed 6 young victims in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Every single one was a black female and under the age of 18. 13-year-old Carol Spinks disappeared on April 25, 1971, after walking home from buying groceries at a local 7-Eleven, about a half a mile away from her home. She was the first victim, and her body was found 6 days later on a grassy embankment along the highway. Several months later, 16-year-old Darlenia Johnson's body was found just 15 feet away from where the first victim was. Darlenia disappeared while heading to her summer job on July 8th. A little over a week later, 10-year-old Brenda Crockett was abducted after her mother sent her to the store. 3 hours later, Brenda phoned home crying. She said, "A white man picked me up, and I'm heading home in a cab." She also added she believed she was somewhere in Virginia, then abruptly said goodbye and hung up. Her body was later found dumped near the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. She had been raped and strangled using a scarf. Even though Brenda said she was taken by a white man, police believe it was the killer that urged her to call her family and fed her the line she was supposed to say. Witness reports said that Brenda was spotted with a black male soon after she disappeared. Shortly after that, 12-year-old Nina Moesha Yates was kidnapped and then found raped and strangled just a few hours later. Then in November, 18-year-old Brenda Woodward boarded a bus for home but never made it. She was found strangled and stabbed, and inside her pocket was a note from the killer that read, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me if you can. Freeway Phantom." It's believed that Woodward wrote the note upon orders of the killer. The final victim was Diane Williams, who was 17. She also disappeared after boarding the bus, and her body was discovered stabbed and strangled on the same stretch of I-295. The people of D.C. were scared and in a panic, to say the least. Many leads came in, and each one was followed through and investigated by police, but nothing came of them. There were also several suspects named, including members of a gang of known rapists called the Green Vega Rapists. One member who was incarcerated at the time initially implicated another, citing a signature detail that could only be known to someone who committed them as well as to the detectives. The gang member only agreed to reveal the information if he would not be named or identified. At the time of the investigation, an election was ongoing in Maryland, and one political candidate, looking to show the public he was qualified, revealed that an inmate from prison provided the information about who the killer was. After this, the inmate refused to give any more information and denied ever saying that he did. In 2009, possible DNA evidence was recovered in the case of Diane Williams, but still today, the case of the Freeway Phantom remains unsolved and open. So there were 2 of the most mysterious and murderous stories around. The world can be a crazy place, and Twisted 2's is sure to show you why. If you enjoyed this video, then please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We have many new scary mysteries videos every single week that we know you'll love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.